This video contains some flashing lights and strobing effects, some gore, and worst of all, my terrible humour. You have been warned. Despite what IGN might say, Alien Isolation is in my opinion one of the greatest horror games ever made. With the new Alien show having me excited for the franchise again, I felt like now was the perfect time to replay it. But this time, I willingly put myself through the madness to go digging for all of the Easter eggs, hidden details, and interesting references that are worth talking about. So here are 10 things you might have missed in Alien Isolation. Number 1. The hidden xenomorphs. One of my favourite mechanics in horror games is when the developers hide things in plain sight. Subtle little glimpses of enemies or monsters that can easily be missed, but make you question, did I just see something out of the corner of my eye? I absolutely love spotting these, and some of the best jump scares ever are the ones where you suddenly realise that you are silently being watched. Now, Alien Isolation doesn't do this all that much, for reasons that we'll come onto later, but there are indeed a couple of times that you can spot hidden xenomorphs around Sevastopol Station. The first one I noticed was after Amanda Ripley aligns the communication dish while going on a nice little stroll outside. On the way back, if you look closely, you can see this Xeno crawling along the wall before disappearing out of view. It's actually really easy to miss this one since the spacesuit obscures your view and there's quite a lot going on in this moment. Now in just a few moments, this is the Xeno that will ambush the people that are trying to board the Torrens. If you left them alive, that is. But this is the first alien you see after the game gives you a break from them after attempting to destroy their nest. This was subtle foreshadowing that the alien was back and ready for round 2. But if you miss this little detail, then this moment might have come as a bit of a shock to you. We can also spot some more Xenos on Ripley's other spacewalk. This time, Ripley is attempting to break the ship, the Torrens, free from the station. She uses a very similar mechanism to the one her mother, Ellen Ripley, used in the original Alien movie to put the Nostromo into self-destruct mode. Right before you start the sequence, you can spot a xenomorph perched on this ledge just patiently watching you. If you keep an eye out, you can see that slowly more Xenos come to join the watch party, which is kind of odd since they don't attack you until you're right about to complete the sequence. I guess even deadly aliens can be polite. But there is a rumour of another xenomorph sighting throughout the game that I think I can pretty much debunk now. For years it's been claimed that you can see a xenomorph hiding on top of one of the trains that Ripley boards, just watching and waiting. Now I checked every single train in the game, even calling ones that I didn't need to try and replicate this, but I had no luck. So either this is an incredibly rare event that just didn't happen for me, or people have been mistaken this whole time. But that actually ties really nicely into my next point. Number 2. Xenomorph Paranoia. One of the many ways that Alien Isolation builds its terrifying atmosphere is by reminding you that you are never truly safe. Right from the moment you arrive on Sevastopol, you are stalked by Axel. You get a couple of glimpses of him as he evades you, but you mostly hear him clattering around trying to get ahead of you. That is of course until a xenomorph says, "Hold my beer," and does it just a little bit better. For pretty much the rest of the game, the Xeno can arrive at any time. The game constantly reminds you that you're not safe. When you hear the clanking in the vents above you, alongside that blip of your motion scanner, that tells you it's probably time to jump into the nearest locker. Nope, never mind. But it isn't just the sounds that are designed to put you on edge. The environment itself is designed to trick you into thinking that the xenomorph is coming. There are many, many examples of pipes or machines that look just a little too similar to a xenomorph. There is even this piece of space junk that flies past you that I'm willing to bet was made to look like a Xeno on purpose. But this is actually a core staple of the Alien movies. Every single Alien movie has at least one Xeno that is hidden in plain sight, camouflaged with its environment. The original Alien movie hid the Xeno in Ripley's escape shuttle, and you can spot it several times before Ripley does if you are eagle-eyed enough. This was an intentional design philosophy to put you constantly on edge. You never knew where the Xeno could be hiding, and that made it all the more scary. This philosophy comes from the artist behind the original Xenomorph design, H.R. Giger. A lot of his work is described as biomechanical, that is, a biological organism that either resembles or is fused with a machine. This design was carried over to the Xenomorph, and it helps it to blend into the many futuristic locations we see across the series. The new series of Alien Earth might have even taken this one step further though. One of the xenomorphs we see in that series has more of a brown hue across its skin, and some people are theorizing that this xenomorph developed this so it could hide better in the jungle. But constantly having things that look like xenomorphs alongside the clanking noises that could just be the groans of a mechanical station or could be something else constantly keeps you on edge. This is why so many people believe they saw a xenomorph on top of the trains. The machine parts that hold the car to the railway do look very similar to a xenomorph head. Add in darkness, smoke, and a healthy dose of paranoia, and you have people claiming they saw a xenomorph when all they really saw was this clamp. Now, on a related note, and talking about Alien Earth, there is a scene where I was convinced I could see a xenomorph hiding in the background. Let me know what you think. Is it there, or am I just being paranoid? Number 3. War in Totality. Now this one's just a little Easter egg, but one that I'm a big fan of. You can find this book around Sevastopol Station, War in Totality by Frank Herman. It isn't a real book, instead it's a nod to another series the studio Creative Assembly worked on, Total War. Total War is one of my personal favourite series to play in my free time, and with Alien Isolation releasing on October of 2014, just 2 years before Total War Warhammer 1, this was likely a sneaky nod that they were working on that game. The crest here does look very reminiscent of the ones you find in that game, and this lion is in pretty much the same pose as several of the crests in the game as well. The author, Frank Herman, might also be a reference to Frank Herbert, the author of the Dune novels, another sci-fi series with some pretty bleak outlooks. If you want a real stretch of a theory, Creative Assembly are rumoured to be currently working on a science fiction Total War game. Many people believe it's either Star Wars or Warhammer 40k, but maybe they had this in the works for a lot longer than we thought, and it's actually going to be Total War Dune. Now, I doubt it, but it would be pretty cool. Number 4. Sevastopol was doomed long before the alien. By the time Ripley arrives at the Sevastopol station, it's clear that something has gone horrifically wrong. At this point, there are still quite a few survivors, but it's clear that between Xenos picking them off one by one, the synthetics being less than friendly, and the human emotions of fear and paranoia, these survivors aren't going to last very long. But even before the xenomorph outbreak on the station, Sevastopol was a pretty horrific place to live. Sevastopol was owned by the Seegson Corporation. This is one of Weyland-Yutani's competitors, the evil company that is behind all of the xenomorph shenanigans throughout the Alien series. Seegson likes to paint itself as a better alternative to Wei-Yu. They call themselves the little guys in comparison to the big bad company. However, this is not true. Seegson are just as bad as those bigger corporations. Originally named Sieg and Son, Seegson attempted to keep up with Weyland-Yutani in the new era of space expansion. Their main selling point was that they could offer similar products as their competitors but at a fraction of the cost. The easiest example of this is the comparison between Seegson synthetic, artificial persons, with Weyland-Yutani's. Wei-Yu's synthetics looked and behaved identically to humans. This is actually a big part of the horror in the series. You never truly know who is a human and who is a synth until you see them bleed. Seegson synths, however, are clearly not quite as sophisticated. They look and act much more like robots than Bishop or Ash. Seegson tried to sell this as a positive. They claim that realistic-looking synths are scary, and people prefer when they know exactly who's a synth and who is a human. Now, they probably would have a point with this. That is, if their own synths didn't look like Michael Myers' creepy cousin. Seegson actually wanted to replace huge chunks of their workforce with these synths. You can see with their propaganda posters that they were subtly implying that eventually no one would work and the synths would do it all for them. However, just like in real life, these companies do this purely for profit. Those same workers who get replaced end up jobless and left to fend for themselves. With the numbers of synths on Sevastopol, you can already see just how many humans would have been out of a job under this company. But it gets even worse than that. After struggling to find a buyer for these working Joes, likely due to other companies preferring Weyland-Yutani products, one of the execs for Seegson demanded that the synths be made cheaper. This was despite complaints from the engineers that this cost was needed to make them safe. Now yes, the synths aboard Sevastopol ended up under the control of Weyland-Yutani when they bought the station, but it seems like synthetic-related accidents were going to happen sooner or later anyway. But that cost-cutting attitude is another reason why Sevastopol is in such disarray when we arrive. What is left here is just a skeleton crew, those left behind to keep the station running until it's shut down for good. But with Seegson now cutting their losses, those who remained here were left to fend for themselves. Violence and theft were already beginning before the ship containing a chestburster-infected human arrived. This is one of the many reasons why the Xenos went undetected for so long. With crime rampant, working Joes malfunctioning, and the station slowly falling apart, people were already used to others going missing. Just another day on board a doomed station. But this isn't the only way that Seegson treat their employees badly. The advertisements around the station show how workers were manipulated even down to the products they were sold. Workers were sold pills to help them work longer hours, likely due to the lack of real human staff. But then they were sold a different pill to help them sleep, literally selling the solution to a problem they created. Staff were also given awful food supplements. The vending machines appeared to sell hot food, but when you see what they actually serve is just bricks of flavored something. Cigarettes are pushed on advertisements including children, which on a station with limited supply of oxygen is a terrible idea. That probably explains why so many of the humans in the station have a cough. There are plenty more little nods to how bad life was upon Sevastopol, but if you thought that was bleak, check out my next point. Number 5. The missing children. Throughout the game, there are many references to children who lived aboard the Sevastopol station. That makes sense, as many families would want to live together on board stations like this, and I'm sure more than a few people started families while there. But despite seeing plenty of evidence that children did used to live here, not once do we see any children at all. Listening to the audio logs, we hear someone claim that the children were being held in the safe haven and that they hope they made it out. But with this being the Alien series, I doubt they got so lucky. In fact, the evidence actually suggests their fate was much worse. During the early parts of the game, you can find this children's drawing that shows creatures that do resemble the xenomorphs even down to their elongated heads. This implies that the children were still around to witness the aliens as they started to attack and abduct people. By this point in the timeline, there was no way off of Sevastopol. This was one of the reasons why Ripley struggled to leave once she found the black box of the Nostromo. There were no ships left to take off in, and communications had been deliberately cut with the outside world. Despite not showing any corpses, the implication is clear. The children suffered the same fate as everyone else on the station. If they weren't taken by xenomorphs or killed by working Joes, then they likely perished when the station crashed into the nearby planet. But since it's never stated, if you want to believe that they had some sort of miracle escape, go ahead. After all, Newt survived a whole xenomorph hive in Aliens and managed to escape the planet with Ripley. Oh no, wait, they killed her off at the start of Alien 3, never mind. Still mad about it. Now, since we're at the midpoint of the video, here is just a cool small detail. Throughout the game, you can collect ID cards of some of the less fortunate Sevastopol dwellers. Some of them appear to be references to real people. I'm pretty sure some of these are British footballers, and my absolute favourite is this one. Now, I haven't collected them all, so if you know of any more, put them down in the comments. Oh, and a second little bonus one for you. While I was editing this video, I found this body, which seems to move on its own. I don't know what it is, but I seem to find cursed things in almost every horror game I play, and, well, we can just add this one to the list. Number 6. Hostiles nearby. Alien Isolation uses a very unique save mechanic. To save your progress throughout the game, you have to find one of these emergency phones and log your complaint. That's already kind of hilarious if you think about it. Every time you want to save, someone has to file another unanswered call in the book. But these phones have another useful function. They will beep when you are close to one, letting you know a safe spot is near. Very handy in a game where you can get ambushed at almost any time by an enemy that can insta-kill you. But they will also explicitly tell you if hostiles are nearby. Now, for the most part, this mechanic is to make sure you don't softlock yourself by saving while the xenomorph is hunting you. Who would do that? No one would ever do that. That would be silly. Imagine.
No. Wait. Wait.
In space, no one can hear you crap your pants, which is great. For me. But it also adds to the tension. Sometimes these devices will let you know an enemy is nearby before you've even realized it. This save system was so iconic that Fede Alvarez even used it in Alien Romulus, the latest Alien movie. Every time something bad is about to happen to a character, there'll be a phone in the background somewhere. But if that wasn't already cool enough, the developers even use this phone for a huge piece of foreshadowing midway through the game. During the game, we meet Dr. Coolman, who tricks us into venturing into the medical bay while he sits in the safety of his office. Not cool, man! But if you were paying attention, you might have realized that he wasn't exactly as safe as he thought. The save phone right next to Coolman's office always displays the warning that hostiles are nearby, even when there are no enemies present in the area. This subtly tells us that a Xeno was just waiting for the right time for him to leave his office so that they could snatch him. And when it does, he doesn't manage to keep his cool, man. Alright, okay, I'm done. It's actually fairly ironic because we learn later that Coolman knew there was a xenomorph in the area. He neglected to tell us this, but when challenged, he admits he might have known. He likely used the same phone system as we did, which is why he didn't want to leave his office. He tried to use Ripley as bait, but unlucky for him, the xenomorphs are very intelligent and very patient. Number 7. Lots of foreshadowing. Like any good story, Alien Isolation contains some foreshadowing to things that will happen later in the game. We've already talked about Dr. Coolman, but this graffiti you find right near the start of the game tells you to keep moving. This foreshadows the mechanics of the alien who will spawn if you linger in one area for too long. This actually happened to me on this playthrough before I'd even had the alien reveal. I was looking for that supposed hidden xenomorph on the train, and because I spent too long in this area, the xeno spawned just to kill me. At least somebody's thinking of me, right? The radios that you can find throughout the game play a variety of music and entertainment. One that I found right at the start of the game was reading a passage from Alice in Wonderland. This was foreshadowing the rabbit hole we're about to go down and the madness that we are about to encounter. There's also another hidden meaning here that we'll come on to later. But my favourite piece of foreshadowing by far is this one. Alien Isolation had a pretty big twist for people who were playing on release. The marketing for the game had made it seem like there would only be one xenomorph on Sevastopol Station. The developers only ever talked about one, and up until this point in the game, the characters and you, the player, were all under the impression that it was a lone alien just like in the first movie. But after getting rid of the Xeno and having a brief reprieve, it's revealed that there isn't just one, but a whole hive of them. But this moment was massively foreshadowed by this poster that you find right before the big reveal. This poster shows someone using a motion tracker just like yours to detect a horde of rats. Now, not only does this show that rats are still a problem in space, the reason given for the Nostromo having a cat by the way, but the wording here was a huge clue that Ripley's time with the xenomorphs wasn't over. The rats are all black, which obviously makes them look like tiny little xenomorphs, but the words, "before they breed," is a clear nod to just how persistent the Xenos are. In Aliens, the sequel to the original movie, we saw just how quickly the Xenos can take over a whole colony. While they might have a very unique and elaborate reproductive cycle, the Xenos always seem to stick around. Just when you think they're all gone, you find a hidden Xeno or a facehugger ready to start the whole cycle again. In a lot of ways, xenomorphs are just like rats. They scurry through vents, reproduce very quickly, and can always chew their way out of a trap. Rats, just like Xenos, are also very intelligent, and both end up as swarms if you let them. Seeing this poster right before we found the hive was a cheeky little nod that just like the rats, the xenomorphs had already bred, and that we were about to have a very, very bad day. But this isn't the only metaphor we have for cat and rats that we have in the game. Number 8. Sevastopol's cat. Cats are something of a staple in the Alien series. Jonesy the cat was the only other survivor alongside Ripley in the original Alien movie. Alien Earth featured a cat aboard the Maginot, another Weyland-Yutani vessel, although that one wasn't quite so lucky, and Alien Isolation has its own cat that is referenced a few times throughout the game. As I said earlier, cats are often found on board space vessels, with the justification being that they help to control rodent populations, and in the case of Sevastopol, perhaps this is true. But while you can't technically see the cat in Alien Isolation, you can actually hear it. Towards the start of the game, before the first xenomorph is revealed and just before you obtain the maintenance jack, if you listen very carefully you can hear the sounds of meowing. Knowing just how many air vents exist on the station, and knowing just how cats always like to get into places they shouldn't, it makes sense that the sound of meowing has probably been heard like this before. But as soon as you get too close, you hear what appears to be the sound of the cat meeting its end. The implication here is that the xenomorph managed to catch the cat, which is also kind of creepy knowing that it was close to you at this point as well, you just didn't know it yet. This cat wasn't quite as lucky as Jonesy, but still probably more lucky than the cat in Alien Earth. It is kind of weird though, knowing that the xenomorph left Jonesy alone in the first Alien movie makes me wonder what this cat did to piss off the alien in this game. Number 9. The Queens. One of the biggest discussion points for Alien Isolation is, where is the Queen? After playing through the game, there is a lot of evidence that there was an alien queen somewhere on Sevastopol. We see a fully fledged hive, far more eggs than the Anesidora would have brought with it, and we even see a scene of xenomorphs reacting to something, implying that they are hearing the call of their queen. Despite this, we never actually see the queen in-game. The developers have stated that there was indeed a queen on board Sevastopol, but they didn't want to show it because then players would expect a boss fight, and they wanted their game to feel more like the original movie with a lone stalker alien. But despite never showing the queen, there are a ton of little nods to her around the game. Obviously, you can hear some sounds towards the end of the game that do sound suspiciously like a large Xeno, but there are other little nods as well. There are quite a number of chessboards around the station. Now, chess is usually spoken of as a representation of a fight between two kings, but everyone knows that the most powerful piece on the board is the queen. This subtly contrasts with what is happening on the station. The xenomorph queen here and her army, represented by the black chess pieces, versus Amanda Ripley, a queen in her own right, and of course the other survivors, represented by the white chess pieces. This is yet another staple of the Alien series. Ellen Ripley, Amanda's mother, also faced off against the queen in Aliens, and throughout the series, she is the only one who has the tenacity to overcome the many challenges that prove too much for everybody else, something she clearly passed down to her daughter. This entire theme is why almost every protagonist in the series is female. The horror of Alien isn't just how they can kill you, it's also a subversion of many challenges women face in modern society. In many ways, having strong female leads who have to overcome immense challenge is what's made the series great, and that theme of queens is not lost on me. The radios we find around the game further enforce this, as sometimes they will play an excerpt of Alice in Wonderland. This is yet another story of a girl who has to overcome a queen, but it could even be a cheeky little Easter egg. In Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland, Alice meets yet another queen she has to overcome, this time the Red Queen. This is yet another chess reference, but it could also be a nod to the extended Alien universe. In some of the books and comics, there is a mention of a different breed of xenomorph that are red, led by, you guessed it, the Red Queen. These red xenomorphs waged war against the traditional black xenomorphs, something that was likely inspired by ants. Either way, I think omitting the Queen was probably a smart choice, especially now that we know they're working on Alien Isolation 2. It just means the developers have something they could use if they really want to raise the stakes. Number 10, it's all about the little things. Now this last point is a little bit of a commendation to just how much detail the developers put into making the world feel alive, but also authentic to the Alien universe. The inside of the Torrens was almost a one-to-one to the design of the Nostromo from the first movie, just at a smaller scale. We see that this poor sod was killed in exactly the way that Ash, the synthetic aboard the Nostromo, tried to do to Ripley. The Siegs and Synths also do the same little jog that he did too. Scattered all throughout the station are little notes and workplace sheets, something the devs absolutely didn't need to add, but things that make the station feel more real. You can find several origami unicorns throughout the game nearby to Siegs and Synths as a nod to Blade Runner. That series has been referenced in the Alien universe, leading some to believe that it's the same one. The symbols you see around the station are a slightly adapted version of the semiotic standard. This is the standard set of symbols used in the Alien universe from 2078 and was designed as an easy way for anyone of any language to understand. The game is absolutely full of little details like this. Some of the names in the game are references to developers and so on. I always think it's a really good indication that developers care when they go out of their way to add little details like this. So there we go, those are just some of the things I found on my latest playthrough. If there was anything else that I missed, let me know down in the comments. And if you like this kind of video, maybe subscribe, we have plenty of them on the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.